Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope everything's good wherever you are. Guys, boxing it always disappoints us, but I think this at this point it's becoming a bit of a joke. So apparently Jose Benavidez Senior has come out and said that Caleb Plant has rejected the offer to fight David Benavidez. I don't know what to make of it. I think I was expecting it. I said, we heard about the Munguia Charlo situation, and these fights just seems to me that are not going to happen. Either there's just these guys putting stories out there in the press or to the fans, and just trying to make out that they're trying to make these fights with no intention of actually trying to make the fights. I also think there's a bit of I'm not sure the fights make sense from an economical standpoint. I think these fighters expect a lot from their actual worth, and what I mean by that is I think they expect huge money, but the fights aren't that big financially. So the money that they expect they don't get, basically. And hence why I think the broadcasters probably can't give them the money that they want either, because they know that the fight's not going to do it's not going to generate the revenue that the fighters want to be paid, the amount of money the fighters want to be paid. So it's not, like I said, it doesn't make economical sense. That could be a reason why these fights don't happen, as it could just be these guys don't want to lose. Now Caleb Plant's already lost, so him taking another loss, it'll be a good payday for him. However, I think he's got a great chance of winning. But yeah, I think it's more of it from the economical side that these fights don't happen, is because neither of these guys are big names or big stars. And when you put them together, unfortunately, the fights aren't that big. The fights aren't that big, and their demand is probably huge. So it's disappointing, but it doesn't shock me, because I think we've got kind of used to these guys that aren't stars wanting to fight each other. Crawford Spence is the same situation, even though that's a big fight, and a lot of people say that's that's the biggest fight in boxing. It's the biggest fight in boxing in terms of how good the matchup is. It's not the biggest fight in boxing in terms of financially, and that's where the problem lies. When Mayweather and Pacquiao fought, that wasn't just the biggest fight in terms of the two biggest stars, but two best fighters in the sport. It was also the biggest fight in terms of financially. It was massive. Unfortunately, these younger stars coming through don't have that same kind of commercial value that some of the old guys had in order to generate that kind of revenue. So for example, if you look at someone like Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, they're great fighters, but they don't hold the same value that Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather held. They just don't. And if you look at Terence Crawford, he was at the Khan Brook fight, and he was kind of looking at it, shocked at the atmosphere and how much those guys generated, even though it was two guys that he beat past their best. They were shot to bits, and Crawford was looking around and thinking, I can't generate this for my fights, and I'm the best, probably the best pound for pound guy out there. So I can understand someone like Crawford's frustration. But the point I'm trying to make is that I think these type of Benavidez Plant type of fights, it's not going to be easy to make these fights from an economical standpoint, just because of the amount of money that these fighters won. I hope, look, I think Plant Benavidez is a great fight. Talking about the two fighters, Caleb Plant came out and said that these guys are capping. I was already penciled in. Apparently, Caleb Plant is going to fight Anthony Dirrell next, which again, it's a nothing type of fight. Dirrell's past his best. I don't see what that fight gains, but he's come back from a loss. Plant, maybe he wants to have a tune-up. Dirrell's a good fighter, but I think his best days are behind him. David Benavidez is fighting Lemieux. He's a big puncher, but his best days are behind him. But I think that's a more interesting fight, because I think Benavidez has a poor defense, and I think Lemieux can crack. So I am interested in that fight. But basically, Caleb Plant saying, why are you trying to make a fight when you've already got a fight penciled in. Well, it's not unusual for fighters to make fights beyond the fight that they've already got in the contract. That's what fighters do. That's what their teams do. It's David Benavidez' team that's trying to secure a fight with Caleb Plant in September. But if Caleb Plant is fighting, we don't know when Caleb Plant's fighting, because Caleb Plant's not even, his fight date's not been announced. So if he's going to be fighting in June, he's not going to be able to fight he's not going to be able to fight Benavidez in September. But I'm pretty sure they could have negotiated that for a later date. So it could just be David Benavidez' team capping, as, Caleb Plant has said that he's capping. And what I mean by that is that there's no way, if Caleb Plant's going to fight in June, July, that he's going to be able to fight in September. So is it just something that Benavidez' team is looking to put out there just to make out like David Benavidez is the boogeyman and Caleb Plant's ducking him, nobody wants to fight him? Teams do that to, make their guy popular, that nobody wants to fight him. So then fans demand someone to fight him. I don't think Caleb Plant is afraid of David Benavidez. I think Caleb Plant will fight David Benavidez in a heartbeat. There's nothing to be afraid of, with David Benavidez. I'm pretty sure, he's just been in with Canelo Alvarez. I'm pretty sure he's not going to be afraid to go in the ring with Benavidez. He's not going to be afraid to go in the ring with Benavidez. So my take on it is this. I think it's the economical reasons. I think there's also maybe Benavidez' team trying to spin things, in the sense that if Caleb Plant has got a fight penciled in, which they are talking about Anthony Durrell, then that fight can be negotiated for a later date. That doesn't mean Caleb Plant is avoiding the fight, but maybe Caleb Plant is rejecting the fight for that particular date that's been proposed. And for Benavidez' team to come out and put that out there, that doesn't help situation. That doesn't help negotiations, in my opinion. If you know that he's got, Benavidez' team would know that Caleb Plant's got a fight penciled in. That doesn't help future negotiations, because what it makes it look like, that you're misleading the fans, and you're basically trying to call Caleb Plant a ducker, trying to say Caleb Plant is afraid, and you're trying to ruin his reputation. Now, some fighters can take offense to that, and then that could jeopardize the fight even in the future. So I would prefer, teams and fighters not to manipulate the situation and try to make another fighter look bad in front of the fans, because then that fighter can feel a certain way about that fight, and then sometimes the fights don't happen. Egos get in the way. So I personally think that Benavidez and his team would know that Caleb Plant is in advanced talks with Anthony Durrell for a fight, which is probably going to happen next. I don't know what happened with Jamal. Like, we were hearing Jamal Charlo and Caleb Plant. That's what I mean. All these fights, like, as you guys would say, and some people say, it's all cap. Like, it's all rubbish, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think there's any kind of, I don't think there's any legitimacy behind these guys fighting each other. I think it's just something that just gets put out there just to increase their profile. It's a promotional tool, in my opinion. Canelo Alvarez is the only one that's fighting legit opposition, and this is why it really frustrates me when people criticize his resume, criticize him, because he's the only guy that's really putting his neck out there, putting himself on the line, putting himself at risk. These other guys they're just there, not fighting anybody. Now people can say, well, Caleb Plant for Benavidez, Canelo, but yeah, he got a massive payday for that fight. No one's going to reject a Canelo fight. That's the ultimate goal. But the point is now we get to find out how good Caleb Plant is, because he was never expected to beat Canelo. Canelo's different level. But now we actually find out, because he's David Benavidez and Charlo, these are guys level below Canelo. So now we find out to see what Caleb Plant's level is. We know he's not good enough to beat Canelo, but is he the best of the rest? That's what we want to find out. The money's not going to be as great fighting Benavidez, but it's still a big fight. It's still going to be a good payday. But maybe these guys are getting paid a lot of money for taking these easier fights. Now, Durrell, I don't want to sound disrespectful. Durrell's a good fighter. He's had a good career. But Durrell's at the other side of his career. He's at the end of his career. Durrell isn't the fighter he used to be. So it's kind of seen as a comeback fight, a tune-up fight for Caleb Plant. Now, sometimes those tune-up fights, those cherry picks that we like to call sometimes turn out to be dangerous. And, you know, who knows, maybe it could be. But I'm just not that interested. I'd rather see these guys mix it up with each other, fight each other, and create their, you know, look to enhance their legacies. You know, I don't really care whose fault it is and stuff. Like, you know, one team saying, well, he's ducking him. I do think it's a bit of, nonsense, if I'm honest, because, like I said, if Caleb Plant's already got a fight penciled in against Anthony Durrell, you know, and if that's for June, July, obviously it's not been announced. We're in March, we're middle of March, right? Then he can't fight in September. If the fight's not even been announced, then he's probably going to fight in June. He's not going to fight in September, you know? So that fight can probably happen later down, you know, the line in November, December, possibly. You know, so I just don't think that fighters should come out and give other guys bad press. Just make the fights for the fans. You know, nobody cares about this back and forth and you're the hard guy, people are ducking you. Nobody cares about that. You know, I don't think any fighter is afraid to fight David Benavidez. I just don't. I don't think Caleb Plant is afraid to fight David Benavidez. Not one bit. He's not. He'd fight Benavidez in a heartbeat. And Benavidez would fight Plant in a heartbeat. You know, the fighters aren't afraid to fight each other, in my opinion. But we need to see these guys mix and match it. You know, we need to see these guys fight each other, because otherwise it's going to get to a point where fans are going to get really frustrated, agitated, and we'll still watch these guys fight guys that are not top tier. But it hurts boxing, because that's why the pay-per-view numbers are down. Nobody wants to see these lower tier, you know, a guy, nobody wants to see mismatches. We want to see proper fights. We want to see competitive fights. And Caleb Plant v David Benavidez is a competitive fight. It's a good fight. So yeah, let's hope they can make it happen. Did Caleb Plant reject the fight? According to Benavidez Senior, he did. We'll have to wait and see, guys. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.